Funding for the production of Folks is provided in part by the Friends of LPB.
Up front today, a look at the late Emmitt Douglas, a civil rights leader who fought long and hard for racial equality here in Louisiana. Our one-to-one segment features Judge Robert Collins, the first black federal judge in the Deep South. We close today's show by taking a look at an after-school program for children called Latchkey. Hello, everyone. I'm Rob Hinton, and we'll have those stories today on Folks.
Everybody says folks. Just plain old folks. Everybody just people all over the world. Folks who live, folks got to give, folks got to care, folks got to share. Our world is small, so very small. What touches one of us, who touches us all? To stay alive, just to survive, folks got to be in harmony. Everybody just folks, just plain old folks, just plain old folks. Everybody just folks, everybody just folks, just plain old folks, just plain old folks. Everybody just folks.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Folks. Over the years here in Louisiana, there have been many people who have dedicated their lives to the fight for civil rights. Well, today on Folks, Genevieve Stewart will be telling us about one of them, the late Emmitt Douglas. Genevieve?
Rob, for more than a decade, Emmitt Douglas was president of the Louisiana NAACP. He reigned during the height of the civil rights movement. Douglas was a businessman and a very outspoken civil rights leader. He fought long and hard for racial equality here in Louisiana.
Had the ability to sit down and to talk with politicians. When he opposed somebody, he was very candid about it. He didn't make no bones about how he felt about him, if he supported him. And he had no problems in saying to a governor or a representative how he felt about the issues. But more important than that, he had the same ability to say it to black people. When he thought something was wrong, he said it, and he said it out loud.
Emmitt Douglas was an organizer and a phenomenal leader. He became president of the NAACP at the strategic time of its initial organization on a statewide basis. Harvey Britton was then serving as field director for the association and recalls Douglas's appeal as a motivating force.
But Emmitt not only pulled Louisiana together in terms of its NAACP units, but he pulled together a 5-state region. And he gave us, we've had representation on the national board before, but what he did to the 5 states that comprised our region, Arkansas, Texas, New Mexico, he pulled us together and had us function as a regional unit at the national conventions, dealing with issues that the national was going to take on. He took the lead, not only in the state, but also in the region. And then when he got on the national board, well, then we were just fully represented. And that to me was, I think, one of Emmitt's greatest challenges. He did a lot of things outside or with the association, but I think internally, he made a unit of the NAACP in Louisiana and gave it a recognition in Louisiana that it had not had before.
In 1965 and in 1966, what was the climate like? What were the issues then?
You still had the whole concept of integration in the terms of just being able to walk into a facility and participate. I remember one of the larger clubs here in Baton Rouge, or restaurants, Douglas had went in and got arrested. They wouldn't serve him. And no matter where he went with the idea that I am a free individual and I have free access to any place in this state, in this country. And he was arrested. And so we still had that going on. You still had people whose lives were being threatened. Doug had been threatened on several occasions. His family had been threatened based on his NAACP involvement. In state government, and he was really very much concerned about state government, you had a great deal of racial discrimination in state government. You had almost a total absence of blacks in any administrative kind of situation. He was very much concerned with the civil service structure and how people were promoted and even getting into the system. Many of the programs that came into being came as a result of Emmitt Douglas being able to do or say something. Most people don't know it, but I remember when Emmitt and other members of the NAACP met with the then Governor-elect Edwin Edwards to talk about setting up a consumer protection agency for the state of Louisiana. And it was a direct result of that came about. It was a direct result of Emmitt's activities as it related to John McKithen when he spoke about blacks being happy in Louisiana, that we ended up seeing some of our first black state policemen hired.
Now, I want the record to be set straight that the NAACP will use all of its resources to keep black organizations, political organizations, in power and keep white people in this state from attempting to dilute that power.
Black folks, as well as white folks, had problems with Doug sometimes just simply because of the manner in which he presented the issues to you. So you tended to agree with him or disagree with him, but you respected him.
What was his greatest contribution to the NAACP?
I think Doug fought to make individual blacks in particular look at themselves in terms of what they could achieve in government. He saw, at that time, he saw government as being the place by which blacks were going to eventually be able to bring about change, state government. He was also concerned about the black in private enterprise. A lot of the young people who came to work for Emmitt were just high school graduates at the time, and he trained them and encouraged them to go into their own businesses, and a lot of young people did that. I think his thing was the recognition of the individual talent of a person if given the opportunity to express it on the one hand. But on the other hand, he was very, very much concerned about how we participated in the political system and being realistic about it. You know, Doug used to tell me all the time, he said, Mr. Britton, he said, we ask for things that are not conceivable. He said, not because we shouldn't have them. He said, but they're just not reasonable at this time. And we need to know what our limitations are and how far to go.
Baton Rouge dentist Dr. Dupuy Anderson was also a dauntless leader in the NAACP. He and Douglas were friends for 35 years.
I think Emmitt Douglas left us with a challenge to continue the fight for equality and justice, because he was very brave in challenging the issues at that time.
Courageous Douglas was, as the incident in Leesville, Louisiana demonstrated.
We sometimes objected to some of the stands that he took. For instance, the time he went to Leesville. It was pretty rough up in that area. And he accepted the challenge to go up there.
I think the most serious in terms of physical confrontation occurred in Leesville when some 18 of us were arrested while attempting to look at the housing situation in that community as related to military personnel. Local blacks, sheriffs, and members of the ministry had come to Douglas, asked him not to come to Leesville. He was told not to come. He was threatened if he did come. We, in fact, did go to Leesville, could not find a place to meet, could not find, were told we could not come on the military installation. And it was only as a result of the Masons that we had a place to meet. We met on they had some property in front of the temple, and we put up a tent. And within 4 hours of the tent being raised, we were promptly arrested and spent the night in jail. They were going to keep us there until Monday morning. Doug went down and saw the governor at the time, McKithen, and there was some exchange of communications between the city, and then finally McKithen said, excuse me, well, if they're not out, then I'm going to come in there and lock up everybody. And so he got us out of that situation. I think that was probably one of the most difficult, because when we went back, we set up a meeting to go back the following week for a rally. And we had gotten phone calls from people from all over the country. And one woman called, I remember, out of New Jersey, who told us about the deputies who had been deputized out there, and everybody had been given weapons and so forth. And Leesville on that day became literally an armed camp.
His abiding concern for the poor and blacks and disadvantaged people, but also I remember his never-ending desire to resolve differences between people in a peaceful manner.
Douglas did help the poor and disadvantaged. He received numerous awards for his work in the community for his unselfish personal contributions.
That's the other part of Emmitt Douglas that he pointed out, you know, he'd made it. And he had the time to devote to seeing that others who had ambitions, others who had goals, others who were otherwise deprived had an opportunity to make it. And he strove very hard to do that.
He established a very big business in Baton Rouge. He looked out for the underprivileged by employing them. He brought them in various types of work that he had, grocery business, the beauty business. He hired salesmen. He hired young ladies to work for him. And I think he left Baton Rouge a rich heritage.
Can his shoes be filled?
No, I don't think that you're going to find people who are going to be knocking down the barriers, because those types of barriers aren't here. So from that standpoint, you can say Emmitt Douglas was a very successful man, not only in terms of what he did as an individual, but what he led the NAACP in doing in Louisiana.
Emmitt Douglas died of a heart attack in March 1981. Dr. Anderson shared part of the eulogy with us as he remembers his friend and fellow civil rights soldier.
You know, Emmitt kept you always laughing. I think, and I know, he was very ambitious, alert, and bold. He was courageous, compassionate, efficient, and dedicated. He was very dapper, hilarious, and hospitable. Intelligent, just, and a king-size heart. Lively and laughable. A mediator of justice, equality, peace, and love. He was neat, natural, and objective orator. He left this with us, and I think it's a pretty hard road to travel. He had a big heart, and he loved the people.
Our one-to-one segment today features Judge Robert Collins of New Orleans. In 1978, then-President Carter appointed him a federal judge, making Collins the first black federal judge in Louisiana and the Deep South. He told us how he developed his interest in law.
Well, from a very early age as a child, my mother always was interested in my becoming a lawyer, and she started brainwashing me, you might say, to follow a career in the field, and I guess I lived up to her wishes for me, and that's how I happened to become a lawyer. And as I grew older and became more aware, I recognized the opportunities that existed in the field, not only to make a good living, but also to make a contribution, because in terms of, I was very much interested in civil rights and civil liberties, and so I thought I could help to do something to change the conditions that existed for black people in America. And that's one of my goals in going to law school and becoming a lawyer.
At the time you were in law school, did you ever dream that someday you would become a U.S. District Judge?
No, I had no conception whatsoever that I'd ever achieve that goal.
What does being a federal judge mean to you?
Well, it's the opportunity to perform a great service for the country in a real sense. It's a very challenging position. It pushes you to the limits of your mental ability. I get an opportunity to observe a lot of good lawyers in action. I get a chance to wrestle with some of the most important issues that come before our society today. You know, every kind of issue that you can think about, all the way from abortion to environmental protection.
What does the distinction of being the first black here in Louisiana, or in the Deep South for that matter, to hold the position mean to you?
Well, it's in a sense, it's an honor to have been the first, but I don't think about it too much and focus on that. I guess I just try to do my job, and hopefully I'll make a contribution to society in doing that. I don't think in terms of being the first. I don't dwell on it in my own mind as being any great thing. I think I have an obligation to prove myself as an individual.
What would you like for it to mean to others?
Hopefully I will blaze the trail so that others could aspire in a way that I never aspired, because I had no reason to aspire to become any kind of judge, let alone a federal judge, when I was coming up. I had recently had a schoolmate of mine, I graduated from Dillard, who's a school teacher in Bogalusa, Louisiana, write me a letter and ask me to send a picture so that she could put it up in the classroom, so that would be some example to some of her young students, and she teaches in an elementary school. So that's an example maybe of the kind of thing that I think, quite apart from trying to do a good job and helping society generally, maybe I can inspire some people who need inspiration to become lawyers and perhaps even think about becoming judges.
Think back to when you were offered the position. What were your thoughts at that time?
Well, it's not really like being offered the position, if you want to know the truth. It's something that you have to go after. You know, the position really doesn't seek you. You have to seek the position. In a sense, you might say it was offered to me in that when President Carter got elected, it looked like it might be possible for a black person to become a federal judge, because blacks had achieved considerable political power in the state of Louisiana, and both the United States senators had committed themselves to, you know, being open-minded about the notion of blacks in the federal judiciary. So that made it possible when President Carter got elected, and some people did talk to me about it at the time, and I decided I would go after it, and I started writing letters and, you know, kind of doing a personal talking to people about it and seeing what other people thought about it. And eventually my name was submitted. You know, I talked to the senators about it naturally, and they thought well of the idea.
What do you like most about your present position?
It's I guess the honor and the prestige that's connected with the position, and the opportunity to work on very important problems that are important to society, and helping to solve them. Of course, you know, as I engage in a problem-solving process in that I take on the cases. I have my allotment of the cases that come from this district, which has 13 judges incidentally, so I get 1/13 of the cases. And I solve those, whatever problems are allotted to me, and I preside over those cases.
We close today's show by taking a look at the Latchkey program, an after-school program for children.
Latchkey programs are relatively new to Louisiana, although they have been in existence in other areas for 20 years. This particular program is conducted at the Pennington YMCA in Baton Rouge. Director Nancy Etheridge explains the term latchkey children.
Okay, latchkey is a term developed by a gentleman who is working in California. And latchkey stands for the child who wears a key latched around their neck, and that key is their home. The key that opens their door to their home, because the parents or someone is not there when school gets out, so they would walk home and unlock the door and go inside and watch TV or whatever until mother came home.
She further stated the need for latchkey programs.
I think that when a child is not attended to, they don't know what to do with their time, and they become mischievous, and they get into things they shouldn't get into because they're trying to be creative with their time. They're spending all their time watching TV or listening to the radio or In fact, some children will cause trouble to get attention because they're not getting it. And they'll get it here.
How does the latchkey program differ from daycare or a babysitting situation?
The biggest difference I find is that we're not just babysitting. We are trying to reach this child's need. The purpose of the YMCA is to develop people totally in their mind and their spirit and their body. And in our program we try to achieve those goals of providing activities for them, physical activities. We play games every day. They're organized, they're structured, in sports. We do arts and crafts, which stimulates their creativity and their mind. We also provide a homework time, and if the children don't have homework, we'll provide creative challenges to stimulate their mind. The atmosphere is a very loving atmosphere. The counselors are trained to meet the children's need, to talk to them as people, to ask them, how's their day? How do you feel? And it's not a matter of just dropping their kid off and they do what they want or color or play with blocks and just to occupy their time, as we were trying to get to these children and develop them.
Nancy Etheridge begins her day before 7 a.m. when the first children begin arriving for the morning program. This WISE program serves children from grades kindergarten through 5. Parents bring their children to the morning session, and the WISE van takes them to school.
Children are brought to the Y by their parents, and so they will be coming on gradual, one to come, then two, and so forth. And when they first come here, we take the time to find out how they're doing. You know, what you have for breakfast, what you're doing at school, so we get to have that personal contact with them, deal with their values and if they have any decisions to make that day. And we open the equipment closet and get the balls out, and the kickballs and basketballs and so forth, and they'll play on their own, and we're there to play with them. And as more children come, we will organize games. So we usually get 2 games in the morning before we have to take them to school.
In the afternoon, Nancy picks up the students from nearby schools. They are usually restless, rambunctious, and full of news from their day. So the ride in the van is often jolly and noisy. In addition to games and sports, the Latchkey program teaches children about health and nature. The counselors work with the children on an individual basis, with both homework and their emotional development.
When they first come here, we give them the opportunity to have some free play. They've been at school all day, they're tired of sitting, they're tired of being told what to do, so we do give them the opportunity to run around and get that energy going. Then we provide a snack, and after snack time, we divide them up into, right now, 2 groups according to their age, and provide some type of physical activity. That be a game or sport. And then after that, we go into a study time. And often, if the children don't have homework, it will be combined with an arts and craft type of activity. We like to calm them down into a more controlled atmosphere so that when their parents come here, they won't be all wound up. One thing we do is to keep the program from getting boring to the children, we create themes. So like this week might be Olympic week, and next week might be Carnival week. And we also take the idea of each day as a specific activity. Monday might be arts and crafts, and Tuesday would be nature, and Wednesday would be games, so that there will be a variety.
What has the response from the parents been?
They love it. They really do. When they come in each week and pick up their kid, they say, I don't know what you're doing, but you're doing a good job. I've got my son's in Boy Scouts, and they're having a Boy Scout camp next week, but they want to come here, you know, and things like that. I have people requesting that we go to other schools. You know, when are you going to come to our school? And then again, it's transportation. So it is a positive. In fact, we had one girl drop out because there was an opening at another center. She was there 2 weeks and came back. So that says something.
If interested parents wanted to begin a latchkey program in their area, how would they proceed?
One thing they can do is to check and see if there is a YMCA in their area, because this latchkey program is a national YMCA program. They can do that first. Second would be to check with other organizations, see if they run a day camp or any of those type services, because it is a feed off from that. Another would be to check with the principal at their school to see if they'd be willing to provide some classrooms after school for the program. a key would be to get someone who has a facility who's interested.
There is a nominal fee that parents must pay to help cover the salaries of staff members. Often the snacks are donated by local merchants and parents who want to contribute more to this unique child development program. Since the Latchkey program is housed at the Y, the facilities are excellent, equipment costs are minimal, and staff members are very enthusiastic.
We have a ratio of 10 to 1, and that would be one paid counselor with the children. And those paid people are usually college students who are in the field of education or something, recreation possibly. Then we also have a junior leaders program, which is a high school program. And these children work on a volunteer basis, and in return we are training them to be counselors for the future.
To receive information about the Latchkey program, you can call your local YM or YWCA. If your Y doesn't have an after-school program, you may want to inquire about starting one. Nancy Etheridge thinks your children will certainly be enriched by the experience.
To compare the children in Latchkey to children that do not attend a Latchkey program and what their behavior would be at school is something I think that the school could tell us. They could keep up with the statistics. I do not know of any statistics at this point that would give us that information. My own opinion would be that they would be more well-rounded and that they would have a healthy outlook on life.
That's our show for this week. Thanks for watching. Next week on Folks, a Christmas treat. We hope to see you then. Bye-bye.
Funding for the production of Folks is provided in part by the Friends of LPB.